Somewhere on your skin right now, there might be a creature so tough it can survive in the vacuum of space, shrug off a dose of radiation that would kill a human 1,000 times over, and come back to life after being frozen solid for 30 years. You cannot see it without a microscope. It has 8 stubby little legs and looks like a tiny, wrinkled bear. And scientists have been trying to kill it for over 200 years. So far, it keeps winning. This is the story of the toughest living things on Earth, and the question that drives researchers crazy: how on Earth, or anywhere else, do they do it? Meet the tardigrade. Its name comes from the Latin for slow stepper, because it waddles around at a relaxed pace that makes a sloth look energetic. Tardigrades are usually about 0.5 millimeter long, which means you could line up 20 of them across the period at the end of this sentence. They live in moss, in soil, in the ocean, in the ice of Antarctica, and very likely in the gutter outside your house. There are over 1,300 known species of them. They have been on this planet for at least 500 million years, which means they survived every single mass extinction that ever wiped out the dominant life forms of their era, including the one that finished off the dinosaurs. So what makes a tardigrade so indestructible? The secret is a process called cryptobiosis. When conditions get bad, a tardigrade pulls in its legs, squeezes out almost all of the water in its body, and shrivels into a tiny barrel-shaped blob called a ton. In this state, its metabolism drops to less than 1/10 of 1% of normal. It is not quite alive in the way we usually mean, but it is definitely not dead either. It is waiting, patiently, for conditions to improve. In 2007, the European Space Agency put tardigrades on the outside of a spacecraft called Photon M3 and sent them into orbit. Outside the spacecraft means exposed to the full vacuum of space, cosmic radiation, and ultraviolet rays from the sun with no atmosphere to block them. When scientists brought the tardigrades back to Earth and rehydrated them, a significant portion of them woke up, moved around, and even laid eggs that hatched successfully. This was the first time any animal had been confirmed to survive direct exposure to open space. The results were published in the journal Current Biology in 2008 by researchers Ingemar Jonsson and colleagues at Kristianstad University in Sweden. But space is just one item on the tardigrade's very alarming resume. In the laboratory, scientists have exposed tardigrades to temperatures close to absolute zero, which is about -273 degrees Celsius, the coldest anything in the universe can get. They have also been heated to 151 degrees Celsius, well above the boiling point of water. They have been subjected to pressures 6 times greater than what you find at the deepest point of the ocean. They have been exposed to levels of ionizing radiation more than 1,000 times the lethal dose for a human. In cryptobiosis, tardigrades shrug all of this off. Researchers at the University of Stuttgart and other institutions have documented these tolerances across dozens of published studies over the past several decades. One of the ways tardigrades handle radiation involves a protein that scientists discovered in 2016. A research team, led by Takuma Hashimoto at the University of Tokyo, found a protein unique to tardigrades, which they called Dsup, short for damage suppressor. This protein wraps around the tardigrade's DNA like a protective shield and physically blocks radiation from breaking the genetic code apart. When the researchers inserted the Dsup gene into human cells growing in a lab dish, those cells became about 40% more resistant to radiation damage. That finding, published in Nature Communications, has people in medicine very interested. Now, Tardigrades are remarkable, but they are not alone in being extreme survivors. Scientists have a name for organisms that thrive in conditions that would destroy most life: extremophiles. The word means lovers of extremes, and these creatures have completely redrawn the map of where life is possible. Deep in Yellowstone National Park, hot springs bubble up at nearly 90 degrees Celsius. Most living things would cook instantly, but a single-celled microorganism called Thermus aquaticus lives there happily. It was discovered in 1969 by microbiologist Thomas Brock, and it turned out to be enormously important to science because the enzyme it uses to copy its DNA works at high heat. That enzyme, called TARC polymerase, is now the engine behind a technique called PCR, which is used in every genetics lab on the planet and was central to COVID-19 testing worldwide. Other extremophiles live in the acidic pools of volcanoes, in the ultra-salty water of the Dead Sea, 2 miles underground in rock, and in the dry valleys of Antarctica, where liquid water has not existed for millions of years. Each of these organisms has found a chemical solution, a molecular trick, a biological workaround that lets life persist where it seemed impossible. And here is the payoff to the question we opened with. Scientists studying extremophiles are not just satisfying their curiosity about weird little animals. They are asking whether life could exist on other worlds. Mars has radiation, extreme cold, and very low pressure. Some moons of Jupiter and Saturn, like Europa and Enceladus, have liquid water oceans under their ice. If life on Earth can survive the conditions we have described here, then the universe suddenly seems a lot less empty. Every tardigrade waddling through a patch of backyard moss is a tiny reminder that life is far more stubborn, creative, and widespread than we ever imagined. And that is a genuinely